episode 260.
He said to me, he goes, Vic, he goes, you're blue collar. You're a Yankee. He's from North Carolina. He goes, you've always owned your own business. He goes, you're rough as a cob. You need to improve. And he sat me down and I asked Alan, I go, how do I get out of my mouth what's in my heart?
Welcome, aftermarketers, to Remarkable Results Radio. Listen to learn just one thing from today's episode on your journey to remarkable results. Welcome, aftermarketers throughout North America and around the world. Carm Capriato here with episode 260, a nice round number. Hey, thanks so much for being a regular listener of the Remarkable Results Radio podcast, the aftermarket's premier education venue through storytelling. Vic Tarasik joins me for part 2 as we complete his list of 10 life's lessons. This aftermarket interview is supported by Federal Mogul Motor Parts. When you need innovation and quality, you need Federal Mogul Motor Parts. Brands like Moog, Felpro, Wagner Brake, Anco, Champion, Seal Power, and FP Diesel. They're the parts techs trust. Find out more at fmmotorparts.com. It means a lot to me when you support these brands. I'd love to welcome new Facebook friends, Khalib Bales and Matt Clark, and to my new LinkedIn connections, Anastasia Brewer, Paul Henderson, and Eric Lowe. I appreciate every connection on all my social platforms. Find every social link at remarkableresults.biz/social. Hey, did you know it's easier than ever to listen with the Remarkable Results Radio listening app? It's now available on your iOS or Android platform. Just search for Remarkable Results Radio. It's at your app store, and then download. It was updated in June 2017, so update if you have an earlier version. Hey, don't forget to engage with the Town Hall Academy, the weekly single-subject webcast broadcast live every Friday at 12 noon Eastern. The Academy is released in podcast form no later than Wednesday of each week. A lot to learn from these incredible single-subject forums. Now, meet Vic Tarasik. Vic may be familiar to you. He was with me in episode 234, a great interview, and that is when he introduced his 10 life's lessons, and we covered 5 of them in that episode. Now he's back as promised to complete the 10 and give you number 6 through 10. You know, Vic grew up in Western New York, right here where I've lived my whole life. We have a kinship to the area. Vic is a former 14-bay shop owner from the Woodlands, Texas. Now, Vic is no stranger to giving his time to the industry. He paid it forward, serving as chairman of CCPN, the Car Care Professionals Network of the Auto Care Association. He is still active in auto care today. Vic currently is the Major Accounts Director with RLO Training. Now, this interview is the culmination of his 10 life's lessons. Numbers 1 through 5 are in episode 234. The next 5 we cover now are give back along the way, set an excellent example of integrity, develop your leadership skills, know your strengths, be well-read, and begin with the end in mind, the powerful habit from Stephen Covey. Get an in-depth bio on Vic at this episode's show notes page, remarkableresults.biz/E260. Now, enjoy another great interview with industry colleague Vic Tarasik. Hey, a warm welcome to Vic Tarasik, Director of Corporate Sales and Major Accounts with RLO. Hello, Vic, for part 2.
Hey, Carm, how are you doing today?
I am great. Boy, what a great episode we did together back in episode 234. And we got into a little bit about you as a shop owner and what you're currently doing with RLO. But, you know, one of the great parts of that episode 234 were your life's lessons, some great tips of wisdom. And we covered the first 5, and I promised that I'd have you back to do the final 5. Are you ready?
Yes, I am. I'm looking forward to bringing those 5 back.
Well, yeah. So what were those first 5? Do you have them off the top of your head, or shall I just list them?
Well, first one was get training. The second one was know when to ask for help and bring a trusted advisor around you. Third, bring someone with you on the journey as a mentee. Fourth, really important one, is a journey, not a sprint. And really important to your community, give back along the way.
And anyone needs to go to episode 234 and get into the detail behind each of those. So thank you so much for them. And it really inspired me to have you back and talk about 6 through 10. So what is number 6, Vic?
Well, number 6 is set an excellent example of integrity.
Integrity is big today.
It is. And it's really important inside your shop. Whether you know it or not, your people are watching what you do. They're watching, whether you tell, your gal's got somebody on hold, you tell her we're there and you really are. You're lying to the customer. If you're lying to the customer, what's to prevent you from lying to them? Another thing that they're watching, they want you to succeed. They want you to be an example of integrity. They see so much of it in life in general. And sometimes in our industry, there's a lack of integrity. But if you set a good example of integrity, your employees will set the exact same thing that you do. So I've got a great example inside my shop. I had a new service advisor had come on, and I go through periodic repair order audits. So I was auditing this repair order, and I happened to notice that what she had done was she billed double labor on this brake job. So I walked up to her and I just wanted to clarify. I said, Kathy, I said, you had double billed on this one. Can you tell me a little bit about it? And she goes, oh gosh. She goes, I'm so sorry. She goes, what are you going to do? I'm like, well, I'm going to refund the money to the customer. She kind of looked at me like I had two heads. And she goes, she didn't ask me why, but you could see it in her face. And it was an honest mistake on her part. So I picked up the phone and I called Mr. Austin and I said, hey, Mr. Austin, I said, I want to talk to you about your brake job last week. And he's like, yeah, because I kind of thought that was an expensive brake job. And I said, well, we overbilled you by accident. He goes, really? He goes, honestly, he said, I paid it, but I wasn't coming back. I said, well, hey, I've got a check already written for you. You home right now? Yeah. I said, I'll be right down and give it to you. And she saw integrity in action. And that's the way we did things.
Great story. A really good story. Integrity is all about what you just said. And, you have to have that level of integrity in just about anything you do, because did you create a customer, Vic, for life because you just did that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And he told his friends. In fact, when I went down there to give him the check, he's like, hey, Sal, come over here. He goes, I want you to meet this guy that's bringing me money back. He told him the story. So
he said he was never coming back, but did he come back?
Yeah, he did. And it was in this little tiny community of, elderly people, and, they're used to getting taken advantage of. But boy, once the word spread that we took care of them, we started seeing a lot more of them there. Just doing the right thing. Great story about integrity. What's number 7? Oh, leadership. I'm a big one on leadership, and it's develop your leadership skills. To the guy sitting there going, well, I'm really not a leader. This listener that is listening to us, he's like, I'm not a leader. I'm like, well, yeah, actually you are. You lead one way or another. Someone follows you. Think about a parent. They've got, their kids are following them, or a teacher is a leader. We've all had good teachers, and we've all had bad teachers. We've all had good and bad bosses. So leadership's not positive only. Leadership's positive and negative. You can either be a great leader or you can be a negative leader. Leadership's not something that you're born with. It's something you develop. You hear people talk about born leaders, right? Yeah, I always, in a few of previous podcasts, I have shared a big moment of leadership for me. It was in 1998, and I had a new and different job, bigger job than I ever expected in my life, and I realized that I needed to become a better leader. So I bought the John Maxwell book, Developing the Leader Within You. First page, John Maxwell defines leadership as influence, nothing more, nothing less. And that has stuck with me since that long ago. And I continued to consume leadership books. And there was this very profound passage that I read. I think it was from Kathy Welch, Jack Welch's wife. Hopefully I have her name right, Vic. And she was talking about going to a high school reunion and people coming up to her and saying to her, wow, you've changed. And keep that in mind. She said, well, I hope so. And many people, when they want to look to study leader, to become a better leader, are afraid that they're going to have to become someone that they're not in their public persona.
And have always believed that you need to change as a leader. You need to grow and develop, because if not, your people will not grow and develop if you're not on an individual basis. So change in a person's leadership skills and style is good.
It is good. It's not bad. You should change. I will give you an example of that. I had a guy that I hadn't seen in 15 years. And he remembered the way I used to be, kind of rough around the edges. And he dealt with me over this particular leadership group that we were in for a year. And he said to me afterwards, he goes, "You're not the same person you were 15 years ago." He goes, "You have really changed." He goes, "I was amazed when I first talked to you compared to what you used to be like." And I don't think I thought I really changed much. But when you see it after a 15-year difference, you hear what somebody says about you, what you were like, they speak what you used to be. And we should want to change and improve.
Totally agree. I'm a fan of being a perpetual student and always learning. I've heard some great quotes in my life, and so many, as I've interviewed such great people on the podcast, that leaders read. Do you read a lot?
Oh, gosh, yeah. I've got a bookshelf behind me, about 100 books on another 50 out there. I read leadership books. I typically, personal development, leadership are what I go for.
Yeah.
One of my first books was How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's
got to be on the top of everybody, in the top 3 of everybody's reading list to be a good leader. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had my staff read it. I said, you guys, I would buy the book for them. You need to read it. Just improve yourself. Mm-hmm. And so that was that one. I'm a big Maxwell guy, like you are. Mm-hmm. Becoming a Person of Influence. Those 2 books, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and Becoming a Person of Influence, are the 2 books that absolutely rocked my world.
And conceptually, Maxwell's book, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, is right up there. It's such a powerful book.
Yeah, got that on my shelf. I was going to mention that one also. Yeah, those are great. I mean, I love what he says about the laws. You're not going to master every one of them, but you master as many as you can.
Just this week, I happened to go visit an old friend and in a leadership position, and said to me, "I need to become a better leader." And there's no better time for an individual to want to learn to study leadership at the point when they ask for help, because you can give them every book in the world, and until they really feel, "I think I need to do something about it," does the teacher arrive?
Right. See, I was that guy who was the other way. I didn't need to learn anything. And early on in my journey, I was all that. I was that overconfident, cocky, arrogant, I hate to say it, person. And it wasn't until I ran against the wall, I was working in an organization outside of the shop, that I had to have better people skills, that the pastor came to me and said, "You need to develop your people skills."
I mean, you almost thank the pastor for that momentous occasion that probably spun you around.
It was. Well, and see, it wasn't just my pastor. He's a friend, a mentor. He was somebody that I've known for years before, going to his church. And he said to me, he goes, "Vic," he goes, "you're blue collar. You're a Yankee." He's from North Carolina.
Okay.
He goes, "You've always owned your own business." He goes, "You're rough as a cob." He goes, "You need to improve." And he sat me down, and I asked Alan, I go, "How do I get out of my mouth what's in my heart?" And that's really what it came down to. I was like, what do I do? I said, I know what I'm trying to say, because I was pretty direct. And I was just like, I don't need to put a lot of fluff on it.
Well, you don't really.
But that's how I thought. But heck, when you make a police officer cry when she brings her car in for air conditioning work, you kind of realize that you're a little too blunt.
Let me see. Rough around the edges.
Exactly. That was in 1999. So we're looking 18 years ago. And the first book I read was How to Win Friends and Influence People. And then Becoming a Person of Influence behind that. And it made me realize that when you're talking to people who have feelings, and you need to think about what you're saying.
You know that 70% of professional technicians install Moog? Do you know who is best in class in engineering R&D? Do you know who holds 47 patents and has 28 dedicated engineers on staff? Yeah, Moog. You should know that 85% of Moog socket-style components are manufactured in North America, and that makes Moog best in class for manufacturing. And since 1966, every NASCAR championship has been won on Moog parts. But you knew that. I know why you install Moog. They solve your problems. Over the years, Moog has provided problem-solving innovations like a patented pressed-in cover plate, powdered metal gusher bearing technology, compression-loaded ball joints with a pre-installed integral dust boot, and vertical control arm bushings. You know why you install Moog. Enhanced durability, improved performance, and ease of installation. For more information, go to moogparts.com. Now you know. Here's great news. There's a new brake pad on the market that can stop a pickup SUV or CUV up to 50 feet sooner than other leading pads. And on top of that, it lasts up to twice as long as previous designs. Sound too good to be true? Well, Wagner Brake did it. They designed their new Wagner OEX brake pads that stopped up to 50 feet sooner than other leading brake pads. To prove it, they got Link Engineering, pretty much the industry standard on brake performance testing, and they got their proof. But Wagner needed more convincing. They asked 400 top technicians to put Wagner OEX pads to the test, where it matters most, in their shops and on their customers' vehicles. 99% said they saw a noticeable difference in the new brakes, and 95% said they'd likely recommend them to other service professionals for their customers. Now, soon you can get Wagner OEX brake pads in your shop. They'll be available nationwide with coverage for 95% of U.S. pickups, SUVs, and CUVs. Get the full story. Learn about the science behind Wagner OEX and check coverage. Go to WagnerBrake.com. Take me to the instance when your friend Alan sat you down and said this to you. You were still that cocky, overconfident, high ego guy. Why were you able to listen at that point?
Because I wanted to change. Because I valued his input and opinion. And I knew he was successful. And I watched how he could talk to people. And I also asked him, I said, I watch you talk to people. I don't understand how you do it. His example made me want to model good communication skills. I never really was exposed to really good communication skills for a long period of time.
So you've admired this guy. You watched him, and maybe internally you said, when I grow up, I want to be like him. And so he sat down with you and said, it's always tough for an individual to want to sit down with a peer, a friend, and say, I really suggest you do this. And sometimes it hurts and ruins relationships, and sometimes it blossoms. In
an aspect of developing yourself, you always want to be teachable. And that's what I learned. I learned there was being teachable. You may not like what you hear, but you have to ask yourself the question, is it true? He has a phrase, chew the straw, spit out the sticks. Not everyone's going to tell you the things that they think. They're going to tell you what they think. They may be right, they may be wrong. It's up to you to evaluate it and determine whether it's true or not. And if it is, then make the adjustment. If it's not, continue on doing what you're doing.
Good stuff, Vic. Thank you for this great leadership discussion. What's number 8?
8, strengths. Know what you're all about. Know what makes you up. Know what makes you a strong person. Know what aspect of you is the strongest. And I'm going to talk from technical and also from personal. For me, in the shop, I'm a terrible diagnostician. I don't like drivability. When I say diagnostic, I'm talking about drivability. I don't like drivability. Never really have. Never flourished in it. But man, you give me an engine, you give me driveline, I'm really strong in that. I knew that when I started the shop. And I fumbled, early on, I fumbled around through the drivability, and I had people that I would lean on. But when I got big enough to be able to hire people, and then as I continued prior to the sales shop, I always had a strong diagnostician on hand, somebody who could always do drivability. You're not going to be good at everything. And you take a shop owner now who is out in the shop working on cars, and he needs to develop his skill set, his people skills to go up front. So he needs to bring somebody in to replace him out in the shop while he develops and improves his skills to get up front.
What if he doesn't have good leadership strengths? What if he doesn't have strengths being good at human resources? What if he doesn't have strengths with finance?
Bring somebody around him. Goes back to the good advisors. Yeah, you know, in finance, there's always an option to bring in a good CPA. You know, leadership, you definitely want to develop. And that's kind of a tough move from going out in the shop to developing these business skills that we never had, especially if you haven't gone to college and you've done this by the seat of your pants, like I did. It's a tougher road.
So when you say strengths, you're really talking about, you had mentioned drivability. You're going specific to strengths inside of a shop rather than leadership skills and strengths?
No, I'm saying I'm talking about, there's the technical side, I'll call that. That was the first one. Then there's the personal side. You've probably heard the book Strengths Finder 2.0.
Absolutely. I've taken it, read it, taken the test.
I have too. That's pretty revealing, and it helps you to realize that you have these particular 5 strengths that you want to focus on out of 31. So to think about it, Carm, 26 of those are not your strengths. They encourage you to not focus on the 26 that you're not strong in, but focus on your top 5. And part of my cockiness, well, my number 1 was self-assurance. When I after taking the test and seeing these 5 strengths and reading there's a plus side to each strength and there's a downside to each one. Well, on the plus side of self-assurance is I can motor through most anything. I have an obstacle ahead of me. I will go over, around, or through it. I will find a way. And that's how I'm built. Now I see that as a positive, but if it's not communicated well, people look at it as cocky and arrogant. I wasn't an arrogant person, but it came off as arrogant because I was strong in my beliefs that I could do most things.
That's what's so great about taking the Strengths Finder test, getting those 5 strengths and concentrating on them. And that was your point. I'll share with you, Vic, when I took Strengths Finder and my 5 strengths came back and I looked at them and I said, got me wrong. This isn't me. What are these 5? I actually have them up right in front of me right now on my smartphone. And I started to look at them, and then I started to read, like you said, the both positive and the negative side of each strength. And what happened was, after I had read the book and I got that, but when I got my strengths, I'm in denial. Then I spent time and realized this is exactly who I am. And what happened, Vic, and this all happened as I was starting to be a podcaster. And as I started to look at those 5, I realized that was going to catapult, if I played them right, and give me into a niche that I was going to love and enjoy and have success with. And so when I started to say that is me and those are my strengths, lots of great things opened up. So I love your point, number 8, know your strengths. And I love the connection that you have by, well, now you got to go out and find what they are. And you got to build them and strengthen them and make them who you are.
Because they are you're right, because they are who you are.
Did you look at your 5 strengths and say, no, that's not me?
No, actually, I saw those and it made sense. It helped me to better understand. My wife was the other way around. She was like, no, that's not me. I was like, okay, that helped me to understand me. There was one in there, I don't recall which one it was, but I was like, I don't see it. But then as I started working with it, I saw it.
See, I was in a different place in my world and in my life. And when I looked at them, I said, well, that's not me and who I am right now. And I realized that I need to become who I am. And it was amazing. Here I was just becoming a podcaster. So it was just a perfect time. I don't think there is any good or bad time to take Strengths Finders 2.0, but do something with it if you do take it. And I encourage our audience to do that. I can't wait to get to the next 2. What's number 9?
Number 9, be well read. So leadership, personal, sales, management, self-improvement books, they're all going to help expand your view of things. Yeah, we might look at something and go, I can't see myself doing that. Years ago for me, when I first was growing the shop. I'm like, I can't see myself being a good leader. I can't see myself growing the shop. I can't see myself communicating well. I was doing all these things so poorly. I was exposed to ideas and thoughts in these books that helped me to develop and grow. I mean, what a great training ground to work on these things inside our shop and realize that, it's our own place. We don't have to answer to a board of directors or, another owner.
Thank you for bringing this up. And a million things are going through my mind. One of your friends, Barry Barrett, has been on the show before. And I encourage anyone to just go to the website, type in Barry Barrett, and listen to Barry's, incredible episodes. He talks about he was a slow reader, and he says, and you don't have to be a slow reader to be a reader. You just need to read. And he talked about if you read 20 pages a day, how many books in a year you could ultimately end up reading. He sets aside time for it. So to your point, there are some disciplines about becoming a better reader. And then I have one more resource to share with you and to the audience. Now, if you're a fan of the podcast, you've listened to the Barry Barrett, Tom Ziegler podcast. And I had, Tom Ziegler, Zig Ziglar's son, who runs the Ziegler Company. Well, when we were in discussing, I asked him how he read so many books. And the video didn't go out, but Tom Ziegler took the camera off of his computer and he showed me that on the couch that he reads at every day, there's like 6 books just sitting to the left of him. And they're all at different stages of reading. That helps people understand, well, I just don't want to pick up a book if I get bored with it partway through. Put it down and then take up another one. There's almost like a science to find your own science of reading. And Tom would say, sometimes I don't complete every book. I got the essence that I wanted out of it. It started to get, a little out of where I wanted to go. Closed it down, put it on the stack. Do I go back to it? Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe a few months I put it back on the shelf. But I did get something. I did find the point or two that helped me learn and change. How do you read?
I'm a little bit like that. I'll have a book that I'm at my bedroom. I've got one back here on my shelf. I'm kind of like that. I'll read a little bit, get bored with it, move on. I might have something that holds my attention and read through the whole thing. And there's one particular book I really enjoyed doing, but it was audiobook. And it was How to Win Friends. It was the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I started reading that and I'm like, oh gosh, it's just like way too technical from a reading standpoint. And I got really bogged down in the language and I put it aside for a couple of years. And I'm like, I drive a lot. Why don't I just get a audiobook? I listened to that thing 3 times.
And I know why. Because Stephen Covey is so cool to listen to.
He is. He really is. Held your attention. So yeah. So I kind of hybrid. I do audiobooks. I do great bathroom books. I'll have guys who are like they'll give me the excuse. And I caution them to not use it. I'm a slow reader. It's like I don't have time to. Then they're like, I don't have time to read. And I ask them, well, do you go to the bathroom? And they're like, yeah. I said, well, take the book in there with you. And kind of chuckle, but find a way to get a page or 2 in. Reading is like eating. If you don't eat well, you're not going to do well. You're not going to be healthy.
Leaders are readers. It's no different than joining a 20 group, having a business coach, sharing your knowledge, networking. But reading helps solidify your ideas. It's intimate. It's one-on-one, very much like a podcast. Anyone who wants to listen to a podcast, in the headphones or wherever they're at on a one-on-one basis, has their own personal networking. They're hovering over a conversation, and they're being inspired or learned by it. And it's no different than a book. You've got to find the time to do both. Really. I don't want anyone to start reading more and not listening to the podcast as much, but you have to do both. You just have to do both. Great stuff. Thank you. And number 10, is this going to hit it home or what?
This will hit it home. Begin with the end in mind. Stephen Covey, what's your exit strategy? I keep going back to the operational standpoint. We all know how to fix cars, and we all operate in this principle on a daily basis. we have a customer that brings their car to us, we begin with the end in mind. The end is getting their car back to them and fixed and running as designed by the manufacturer, as good or better than parts that were put on there to begin with. So we know what's wrong with the car. We know how to fix it. We know, what the cost to the customer is going to be. And we know the time frame we've committed to. Meet that goal on a daily basis. Why don't we do that in our own businesses? I didn't initially. When I started my shop, I was like, I was going to run an automotive shop. I didn't have a target as far as an end date. It's kind of like a road trip. You have a destination that you're trying to get to. We do when the customer brings us their car. You'll have, and you've probably talked to shop owners. Some shop owners, they don't want to be multi-store. Some shop owners want to be multi-store. I've talked to young students, and invariably any new student coming into the college, I ask him, I said, so what do you want? He goes, I want to own my own shop. And that's, they have a feeling for what they do, but they don't know how to get there. So having you're beginning with your end in mind will help you roadmap it. I had a young guy I spoke with as I was wrapping things up at the shop last year, and he was buying a few things off me. He was typical, your typical technician that wanted to become a shop owner. He's just turned 40. And I asked Mario, I said, so when are you going to retire? He looked at me, he's like, why are you asking me that? I said, well, you've got this young son, he's like 8 years old. You're going to have grandkids in maybe 15 years. So at what point do you think you're going to be able to stop wrenching? And he kind of looked at me and he goes, Vic, I haven't even started and you want me to figure out when I'm going to close my doors or sell it? And I'm like, no, but I want you to think about it. I want you to start with the end in mind. And he looked at me again. He goes, I don't get it. I asked him, I said, have you ever taken a road trip without a destination? He goes, oh yeah. He goes, I said, how'd it go? He goes, oh, he shuddered. He was terrible. I go, well, you're getting ready to take that road trip. I spoke with another shop owner yesterday. Really, really smart shop owner. And he's late 30s, early 40s. 5 years ago, he had one shop. Today, he's got 3. And now get this, Carm, he's, let's say 40. He said to me, he goes, I'm planning my exit for 5 to 10 years. That's pretty good. I mean, he's already got 3 shops down. If he's going to, stay with just the 3, great. But he's got the next phase of his life planned.
There's nothing wrong with having very big and aggressive goals because they get out in front of you. And yes, you are allowed to change them, but at least you can see the gap between today and way out there and make those decisions when you're going to yin and yang in order to get there. A couple of pointers came to mind as you were talking about beginning with the end in mind. We've had Bob Ward on the show. We had a succession planning academy, and he talked about running a perpetual business, something that continues to flourish even if you're not there someday, and that gets you in the mindset to be able to scale the business and have every process and procedure right so that the business runs without you perpetually. It was a great, great episode, Academy on Succession Planning. And then recently, Michael Gerber, who wrote the E-Myth, he wrote his final, I'm not sure if it's his final book, but I think one of the third books in his trilogy. Yeah, it would be the third book in the E-Myth trilogy. And this one was called The E-Myth Revisited. And I read it, and it was a great book. I couldn't put it down. And he talks about never start a business that you don't plan to sell. Get that and put that in your pipe and smoke it a little while. Interesting theory. No different than what you're really saying, begin with the end in mind. And what Michael Gerber says is all the things and all the decisions that you make will be for that eventual day, 10, 5, 20 years down the road. But it's amazing how quick time catches up to you, and you're constantly changing and re-strategizing your business as this crazy world of the automotive aftermarket continues to change. The technology changes, the need of technicians changes, and the level of competition is changing. Costs constantly, having effects on the success of business and labor rates, and new ways to do things. So I think those are great great principles to begin with the end in mind. Thank you for that. And I don't think there is any better time to plan succession than now. And oh, by the way, at the level of the service professional, and it goes back to the Succession Academy that we did, I think it was Bob Ward who said that he's seeing 90% of successions are from internal candidates. It's either a tech service advisor, the manager of the facility, or family. Let me just also say this. There's a lot of family out there that is waiting for the day that dad or mom says, hey, let's start this thing off, but they never seem to want to get to it. It goes back to what you said. It's in their heart, but they just don't know how to get it said.
And I think that goes back to kind of bringing advisors around you, being open to it. We get a ton of purpose out of what we do too. So why should we plan on it coming to an end? I mean, heck, enjoy your life. You know, you've built your business. You've made a significant amount of money. You'll make more money if you plan on the end, because you'll start planning for it.
Well, I have to tell you, these were just great, very great, wise life's lessons along the way. Episode 234, you'll hear the first 5, and of course now you are in deep in this episode. But thank you for the remaining 5. So we got 10 great ones from you. Good inspiration. Thanks for letting me chime in a little bit here.
No, I enjoyed it.
We'll see you at some industry events this year.
I look forward to it.
Thanks, Vic. Thank you, Vic Tarasik, for completing your life's 10 lessons. It was a great fireside chat. Thanks for being so transparent and honest, telling your story of transformation. See an in-depth bio on Vic in the show notes at remarkableresults.biz/E260. Hey, thanks for spreading the word on the podcast and sharing your insider email, or even clicking the share button while listening on the website, or even on your smartphone, or even while on YouTube. Hey, did you know that all the episodes are on YouTube? You are an important reason I bring you these interviews, so you can profit from the answers and the lessons found in each episode. So glad to have you here. Thanks for your support.
Thanks for being on board to listen and learn from the premier automotive aftermarket podcast. Until next time.